And now I will call the August 22nd Board of Commissioners Work Session to order and welcome all. I just saw elected official names here. Gary Gillage come in, and I don't see any of the mayors, but glad to have everyone here this morning. And Lieutenant Daniel will bring forth the citizens wishing to speak. Remind you to turn off your cell phones. They can turn mine off. And we're so glad to have Pastor Gene Morehouse here to open us up with a word of prayer and a pledge to the flag. It's from Westside Christian Church. Thank you for being here, Gene.
You're more than welcome. That video reminds us kids see things differently than adults, don't they? Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, to have a childlike mind and faith and trust, to see the eclipse through the eyes of children and how some of them thought it wasn't dark enough, others thought it was magnificent. And when we think of our Lord and Savior and the great love and compassion He has for each and every one of us, that we are truly the temple that You dwell in, Father. Be with each of these commissioners and the attorney up here. Strengthen them, guide them, that we may have the greatness in this county of people who love and share with one another and not have the bickering and hatred that we've seen displayed in so many other places. May we find peace, joy, and happiness in our Lord and Savior and in our government here. In Jesus' name, all God's people said. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. No, it's a pledge. I'm sorry. Let's pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now you may be seated.
Very special to have you here, Pastor Morehouse. The August 8th, 2017, 9:30 public hearing minutes, and the August 8th, 2017 work session minutes, and the August 8th, 2017 board meeting minutes are available for review. Under announcements, and our Positively Calling segment this morning is a program called Brother to Brother, and it's through Georgia Highlands College, so we'll look at that now. It'll last about a minute and a half.
Brother to Brother is to retain, also to have the students engaged, and also graduate the students from Georgia Highlands College. That is the mission of Brother to Brother. And what we've found is that the student culture has become a family culture here at the Paulding campus.
Brother to brother, saving lives, salvaging dreams.
Brother to brother, saving lives, salvaging dreams.
Who's the man there in the vest, was going to be over this morning, but he's working on another grant for Georgia Highlands, and he also works for Kennesaw State University, so he'll be here at a future date. And Commissioner Commissioner Collette is going to just give you a little report on his town hall meeting.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody that came out. I thought it was pretty successful. We had a good time, a lot of good discussion. Checking on some things for a few folks, and I'll get back with them just as soon as I can. Actually, I have most of the answers. I just need to get back to them. And I will have another one in January, so I'll go ahead and say that now. But thanks for everybody showing up.
Thank you. The Board of Commissioners would like to present the Public Safety Application, need to learn to read this morning. The Public Safety Appreciation Award to Administrative Assistant Tanya Ferris with the Paulding County Fire Department. Chief Pelfrey.
She's loving this. I was like a dentist pulling teeth getting her here, so finally got her here. It's my pleasure to present Fire Administrative Assistant Tanya Ferris with the Public Safety Appreciation Award. Tanya began her career with our department in March of 2009. Over the last 8 years, she's excelled on a continuous basis and has performed exceptionally in all the facets of her job. Her organizational skills and her attention to details are beyond reproach. I think many of us understand how critical an administrative assistant can be for our organization to run efficiently. As our department has grown, so has Tanya's responsibilities. Some of her responsibilities are generating purchase orders, conducting applicant background checks, submitting end-of-month reports, fulfilling personnel administrative needs, maintaining maintenance contracts, and the biggest one's putting up with the fire chief. She's not only an excellent employee, but Tanya's also had a volunteering spirit throughout her years with us. She's volunteered every year to assist with the county trick-or-treat village, Christmas operation for families, fire recruit graduation, and our honor guard fundraisers. There's many more that she does. I just couldn't write them all down. The county and our department and myself are very fortunate to have Tanya. Everybody knows that administrative assistant is the anchor to what you do. She does a lot behind the scenes for all of our employees. And you see the red fire trucks go down the road, and all the firefighters are going and teaching all the children. But if it wasn't for Tanya, these guys couldn't do all that. So Tanya, thank you so much for what you do.
We'll get a picture here in a minute, but the award does say Public Safety Appreciation Award presented to Tanya Ferris in recognition of outstanding service to the community presented by the Paulding County Board of Commissioners.
We do have people out protecting the citizens right now.
Even it out, Steve.
Squished in.
The Board of Commissioners would also like to present a Certificate of Recognition Award to Marlon Dixon for outstanding work in her community. And we're going to present this one.
Okay, Marlon. You have to go front and center. Paulding Water is so proud to have Marlon Dixon as a member of our PCWS family, and I'm proud to introduce her to you today. She is helping us achieve our goal of exceptional customer service, and the smile you see on her face today is what you see anytime you walk into our customer service office. Marlon is a part-time customer service rep. She comes in and she helps us during our peak hours in the middle of the day. Marlon and her husband Thomas have 6 children and 16 grandchildren.
Wow.
In addition to working with us, she prepares tax returns, she does interior design, and she helps take care of her mother. Marlon is our first bilingual customer service representative. And I've been privileged to be downstairs and see her, see the look on a customer's face when they realize that there is someone who can interact with them in their native language. A few weeks ago, we received an email that I'd like to share with you. On July 12th, I assisted a client of mine who has limited speaking and understanding of English to open a water service account at your location of business. On behalf of my client and myself, I would like to state that we received exceptional professional service by your staff member, Ms. Marlon Dixon, in both English for me and Spanish for my client. She answered the many questions we both had and was very polite, patient, and always smiling throughout the process. My client is a first-time homeowner, new to the community, and living in Georgia only about 18 months. Marlon was very welcoming. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Marlon Dixon, for your professionalism and warm welcoming assistance.
So the certificate says, certificate of recognition is presented to Marlon Dixon in recognition of outstanding customer service for Paulding County Water System, presented by the Paulding County Board of Commissioners. You're such an example for all the other employees and for us. So thank you for what you do. Thank you.
I think I'll keep it.
Under invited guests, we have none this morning. Under bid awards, number 1, award the 2017 asphalt contract 2 to the low bidder C.W. Matthews Contracting Company Incorporated in the amount of $4,455,372.22. And we have Ms. Pollard along with Mr. Green to present this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This will provide asphalt, milling, patching, leveling, plant mix for about 23.93 miles. We had six participants and recommending award to the lowest bid in the amount of $4,455,372.22. And it comes in just under DOT's estimate.
Just to add to that, you have a list with your backup. This includes almost 24 miles of subdivision street, so we're very happy to get back on track doing subdivision work. Had several years where we weren't able to do this much. So I'm glad to bring this to you for your approval. Also, we will be using the FY 2018 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant funds from the Georgia DOT in the amount of $1.789 million. And that, over a 3-year period, that does equate to a 43% increase in that program, which they did talk about when they changed the fuel tax from a sales tax partially to all excise tax. They did estimate we would see an increase of 38 to 43, and that's actually 43 is the high number, and we have seen that through our increases over the last 3 years. So I was able to verify that for you. And these are about the same prices we saw last year, so that is good. We did see some increase in the recent contract for the heavier travel roads, the collectors, but this contract is in line with last year's prices. Do you have any other questions? I'll try to answer.
There may be some individuals in the audience or that will watch on Channel 23 that would have interest in how the list of roads is determined or made or prioritized.
Okay, I'll be glad to answer that a little bit. we have almost 3,000 streets, so it's quite a job to go through all that. Of the subdivisions, they include about 450 miles of our system. It's about half of our streets. And I can say we're trying to keep our streets from being older than 20 years right now. I wouldn't say we're doing them at the optimum time. If we go through this list, I think the average age will be about 20 years on these streets. And I think that's the system I'd suggest that we migrate to, is look at age first. If we go just on condition alone, it gets to be very problematic in trying to pick streets. If you go into a neighborhood and just pave one street and then leave, then you leave a lot of the neighborhood unfinished. So we'd like to go in and treat the neighborhood on a larger basis and do it all at the same time. I think it's less disruption when we do it that way, and better finished product when we do all the streets in one neighborhood at one time. But we'll take it, any suggestions on another way to approach it, but I think that's going to be the best approach for subdivisions. On the other roads, which is the other half of our system, the uncurved roadways for the most part, the local connectors, and minor arterials, we really have to look at the traffic. That really is the biggest factor. Is the truck volume and the car volume affects the deterioration of the road more so than the age. And so we have a rating system. We got about every 3 years, and we score every street. And we're due for that again. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at after this winter. And I'll be glad to report on that to you.
Scott, some of these streets I recognize, and folks ask me about when is my neighborhood going to pay. Do we have an anticipation of completion date for this project?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention that. This will start now, or just in about a month when we get the contract signed, and we're going to give them until the end of May to finish. So some of the streets should be started before winter, and then anticipate they might do some patching through the winter, and then they will come back in the spring and do the bulk of the streets. So this is really spring completion.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Scott. Bid award number 2 is authorize the chairman to enter into a contract with Peak Pavement Markings LLC for the 2017 line striping contract 2 in the amount of $190,070.50. Ms. Palmer.
Good morning. This one, we only had one participant. However, the bid was within 2% of DOT's estimate, so we're taking it as a good bid. We've done business with Peak Pavement before, and
not sure if you had a list in your backup, but this is for the streets we awarded a couple months ago. Those contracts, for the most part, just included painted striping. And then we put out a separate contract in anticipation of trying to get some federal or state funding to help us. Did not come through, but we did have a separate bid that we had to bring back to you for those streets. It's thermoplastic and bridge pavement markers. We're happy with the bid, although it is a situation where we don't have a lot of contractors that did this kind of work. They are pretty efficient and the prices are reasonable. Thank you.
Scott, I'm going to kind of back up just a second, just because it came up the last time we did on number 1. Last winter was a warm winter, and we did a lot of deep repairs, deep patching, I think you call it. And we did a lot of that out on especially ridge roads where we got a lot of the calls. We worked on that during the warm weather, and of course we got a lot of complaints because they felt like we had worked and then we had left and it was done. It was C.W. Matthews, if I'm not mistaken. But that's really not the process. So when we go in this winter in these subdivisions, if there's any deep patching that they may do, they may do some of that and then come back and pave the whole street. But I know last year we had a lot of complaints on that, and by the time it was over, the finished product was great, but it was just getting people to understand that, hey, we got to work through this process. And I thought it worked out great. And being that we had all the warm weather, they were able to do it, so we ended up in the spring with a good finished product. But anyway, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that, because I know Mr. Collette's phone rang a lot of concern in it. mine did, and we kept telling the same story over and over again, and they were receptive to it, most of them that believed us. But some of them thought that we had pulled off and we weren't going to come back and finish that road.
Yes, I'd like to mention that we did change the approach. When we did that last contract, which was a long period of time, a lot of the industry said they did not have the availability to give us good prices if we pushed them to complete by fall. So we did extend that contract looking for better pricing, and we think we did save probably as much as $1 million over that $7 million list of projects. But we did generate a lot of calls. People did not understand what we were doing because we would go in and do part of the work and what we call leveling or patching, and then it leaves a skim coat, and they think, that can't be the finished product, but there's no equipment around. And we just said, well, the construction signs are still up. When the construction signs are down, that's when we're done. But we did have to do a lot of educating, and it was uncomfortable taking a number of calls and seeing that people were upset about that. So when we did the most recent contract that involved that type of roads, the collector roads, we made it as to a November completion. So the contracts that were just awarded to Baldwin Paving for those long roads, that will be completed by this fall. For the subdivisions, they're more of an individualized situation, but they will require our approval if they do not complete that neighborhood before they move to the next one. So we'll look at those and see if it's reasonable, if they can do some work, and then let them move on, or hopefully we'll just move into a neighborhood, finish the whole thing, and then move on. That will be split between seasonal, but you won't have one start in September and then lay there till April or May before it's in March. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We heard it. We heard it. We had many calls. So
Oh, well, we heard it.
many more.
But the road looks great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Bid award item number 3, approve the purchase of a 938M wheel loader using state contract pricing through Yancey Brothers Company in the amount of $218,485. Ms. Pollard, and I think Mr. Leonard has a smile on his face in the back there.
That's right. All of you know the process. When we have a piece of equipment that's large, break, fleet maintenance will repair and repair until they can't repair anymore. And that's the case with this one. As much as a month ago, fleet maintenance sent this and said, it's time, you're going to have to, we're going to have to find some money to pay for this. But we were in the middle of the budget process. So we put it off, and they have managed until now. So this is the first yellow piece of equipment for the landfill that was included in the budget. And I don't feel like I can do it justice to tell you what a wheel loader is going to do at the landfill, so Tommy Leonard is going to do that for me.
We, as many of y'all know, we haven't done anything in our landfill for many years. And we're in the process now of getting new scale house, and a lot of repairs. And equipment has always been an issue. The wheel loader is down probably 80% of the time and up. But basically with the wheel loader, what we do is in our transfer station, when people come in, they back into our transfer station area, they dump their solid waste on this concrete slab. That wheel loader then pushes it up to a pit where there's a 53-foot trailer under it. And they push it into that, and we take a backhoe, go in reverse, and pack it. We call it the push, pack, and pull, 3 Ps of solid waste. So that is a step in the right direction. I'm so thankful that we were able to replace this piece of equipment, and we're going to be doing that in a series of time that we get all of our equipment where it needs to be. So that's what it is. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Tim, what's the budget amount for this purchase? Is this under?
No, I had the actual bid, so it is.
It's exactly.
It is exactly.
Is that the piece of equipment I saw driving real slow down the road this morning, Tom?
No, sir.
Okay.
It wouldn't make it out our gate. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Wipe that smile off your face. Look at it, you can't even stop. I don't blame you. Thank you, Tommy, for what you did.
Under reports from committees and departments, we're honored and privileged to have Mr. Kelly Comstock to report on the Richland Creek Reservoir update.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Password. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you today and give you an update. I think the last time I was able to give you an update on progress on the reservoir and water plant was in May. And since that time, we've had a lot of activity. And everything is going very, very well. At the water plant, all of the structures are now under construction, so that was a big milestone. The final one is the residuals building, and that has begun construction. So I'm gonna flip through some of the activities that are ongoing and some of the milestones that we're achieving. So far, the contractor PC Construction has placed just shy of 8,900 cubic yards of concrete, and that's about 2/3 of the total amount that will be used at the water treatment plant. They've begun installation of masonry on many of the different structures, and the maintenance building is actually nearing completion. So the very first building that they were working on was the maintenance building. They wanted to get that done so as spare parts for the equipment would come in, we would have a nice place to put it where it wouldn't get, it would be out of the weather. They've also been continuing to do masonry work at the administration building as well as the chemical building. You can see some of the images of that work there. They're placing a lot of concrete at the various treatment basins, including the dissolved air flotation and filter areas. And a lot of the piping that will connect those various tanks and structures are getting installed as well. And the granular activated carbon, which follows the filters, that area construction has begun as well. So for all of these structures, all of the work underground is done, all of the piping connecting the various basins. The concrete foundations have been poured, and now they're working on the above-grade tankage and concrete walls. So everything is going very, very well. This is an image of the reservoir intake tower. So this is out in the bottom of the reservoir. If you recall, we have not cleared the trees in the reservoir area yet, but this will eventually be water in this area. And there will be a bridge that connects this tower over to the main area, the main roadway here that will go to the water plant. And there'll be a pipe, and in here there will be pumps that will pump water out of the reservoir and pump it up to the water treatment plant. You can see various openings here within the tower, and that allows the county to pull from different levels of the reservoir. So if they have to draw the reservoir down, they can. If they're having algae, for example, at the top level, they can pull water from the bottom level and sort of get the best water quality possible coming out of the structure. So this is going very well. And you can see this structure that's adjacent is an electrical building that's under construction. They've got all the underground conduit in. They're working on the masonry walls, and so now the roof will go in, and then they'll start to put in the electrical work. And this is from the electrical building looking over as they're working on the tower. So that process is going very well as well. And the other area that construction is really going to be ramping up over the next quarter is at the Etowah River. There will be a similar structure there to what you just saw. That will be pulling water out of the Etowah River and pumping it through the new raw water pipeline that Garney Construction recently completed. So over the next month, the shoring contractors coming in, they will essentially blast and drill down and create a wet well here that will house a pump station very similar to what we saw in the previous image, with pumps that will be located in a concrete tank. And screens will be located along the bank here that will flow into that structure and allow the water to come in off of the river. Brad Cole Construction, who's the contractor that's working on the dam, is also making great progress. They've completed all of the excavation necessary to bring the dam down to sort of the rock ledge that runs through the center corridor of the dam itself. And they've mobilized the Nicholson construction to do the concrete injection that goes below the dam. So for the full 3,000 feet, they're injecting down 80 feet below the dam itself and creating a continuous wall of concrete below the dam. Here you can see an image of sort of the dam center line. So this is where it'll come here. And they're in the process now of doing the concrete injection all along this area. This is an outlet tower that's a similar structure to what we looked at before for the inlet. This will allow water that comes in, that gets pumped to the reservoir, to do a release into Richland Creek, to allow Richland Creek to continuously have flow in it. And in addition, if there ever was a major storm event and you had to release water out of the reservoir, it would come out of that structure. So this structure is here, that's the outlet structure, and then there's a 60-inch pipeline that you can see along here. That has now all been installed. And so while they were working on that pipeline, the contractor had a temporary diversion, this channel that was here, allowing the creek to pass along while they did the work where the pipeline was going. And now that the pipeline is complete, they are routing the flow of the creek through the pipeline itself. That allows them now to do the work in this area where that diversion used to be. And this is all dirt that has been placed so far. They've placed about a 500,000 cubic yards of soil. They will place about another 2.5 million. So ultimately, the dam itself will go from this location here, will be up 90 feet. So over the next year, there's going to be a lot of soil that gets moved from other parts of the site and placed in this area. Thankfully, the rain really hasn't slowed them down. It's actually been very good, so they're really on schedule. And they're, like I said, they completed the placement of the outlet pipe, and that was a major milestone for them. That allows them to get into this diversion area and do the concrete work that has to happen there and really start the backfilling activity that's taking place. Where the water gets into the reservoir itself, it comes from that raw water pipeline, and it basically has to go down the edge of the embankment into the pool of the reservoir. It's a very, very steep slope, and so if we just had water cascading down that slope, it would cause erosion over time. So there's actually an enclosed concrete dissipation chute that basically the water comes down and cascades down, and this is an image where it transfers from that 48-inch raw water pipeline into this concrete chute, and this is the interior of it. And you can see these concrete teeth, and they are basically there as baffles, so the water will sort of trickle down between those and dissipate the energy so the water doesn't come shooting out the bottom and cause issues at the bottom. So this is almost complete, which is great. So once we're ready to start adding water to the reservoir, this will be all ready to go. At the last meeting, the Board of Commissioners awarded one of the final projects that we have associated with the program, and that's the Phase 1 Finished Water Pipeline Project. It's a 48 and 36-inch pipeline that will go from the water plant all the way down to Walraven Place along 61. And that was awarded to Garney Construction, and those contracts are currently being executed. We anticipate construction initiating within the next 30 to 45 days. This will be the first project that really will be visible to the citizens of Paulding County because it will be right there along 61. We are having a public open house this week on the 24th at Burnt Hickory Park. We've invited all of the residents along that area of 61. We've made them aware of this open house and invited them to come to learn about the project and to be able to have any of their questions answered. And we're having it as an extended period from 11:30 to 6:30 to give people, availability after work to come by and learn a little bit more about that project as well. So, as you know, the very final project will be a Phase 2 pipeline. We anticipate bidding that this fall, and then everything will be under contract. Overall, everything's on schedule to be able to be producing water in 2019. And as I stated at the last meeting, everything continues to come in on budget. So everything's looking very good from our perspective. And we're really pleased with the efforts of PC Construction and Bradpole Construction. They're doing a great job out there. And you really have a great team of engineers and contractors that are working on this project for you. And it's getting a lot of recognition. We were actually interviewed by Civil Engineering Magazine that will be putting out a big article on the project as well. So you're getting some national press on this project. So it really is going well. So thank you for the opportunity. Oh, one final thing. We have also prepared a source water assessment plan. And this is an assessment plan that is used by the county to be able to monitor the quality of the source water, not only what comes into the reservoir from the immediate area, the contributing area, in terms of the drainage basin, but also everything upstream of the Etowah River, because we're pumping into the Etowah River. So it was very comprehensive. It includes everything along the Etowah and Lake Allatoona and potential risks that are out there. And then it basically mitigates those risks by providing various things that the county can do to monitor their source water and take action in different events. This is required by EPD, and it's a document that's available to the public, so we've posted it up on the RCR Water website. It's also available at the water department, so if someone wants to come by and take a look at that, it is available for them to review there as well. And I did want to mention, if you want to get any other information on the program, rcrwater.com is continually updated. We're also pushing more information out by Facebook as well, so you can go to the website and link into Facebook and get regular updates on progress. Any questions?
I'd like to comment, had the good fortune of being up in North Carolina for a wedding on Saturday, and they had the Yadkin Reservoir outside of Wilkesboro, and my wife and I were hiking there, and it's 300 acres. We're going to have 305 acres. So there were people out there canoeing and kayaking and just having a good time, enjoying the outdoors. So it's another thing we can look forward to.
So we're in good shape.
Yes, sir. Yep.
On time.
Under budget.
Under budget.
Under budget, right?
Yes, sir.
Under budget. I want to apologize. I'm not going to be able to be there this week. I'm going to school in Larryville. Lori has gotten a handful of my cards to hand out to anybody in my area out there. And, I did want to ask a question. I was out in the beginning when they had this monitoring station there at Richland Creek. What you were showing in a few slides back, that don't never have to be manned. That has a device evidently when it gets too high to let water out.
Oh yeah, it's a passive overflow. So there's actually a standpipe that is open at the top. So if water ever got to a certain elevation, it's going to cascade into that structure and flow out. There's a small amount of water that gets continuously released. And so there's set points and valves that are adjusted to be able to pick the level that the water is discharged. Because if we were pulling too low from the bottom, it may be too cold for the stream itself. So there's some adjustment that'll be made. We don't anticipate that that'll happen very often. It'll probably be monthly or every couple of months. An operator will go out there. There's a bridge that goes to that tower. They'll make an adjustment. But yes, to answer your question, there's a level indicator to where the operating staff will fully understand the level of the reservoir itself. In a major rain event, they would likely turn off the pumps at the river because they're going to get plenty of water coming from the rain event, and they don't want to have to pump water that then gets wasted through the outfall in an overflow event like that.
That was just a curiosity question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're privileged to get an update from Deidre Holden, Supervisor of Elections and Registration Director, on the polling locations that are going to be added. So Deidre, thank you for updating us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's doing well. I put some information up there for you all to kind of look over. I know it's probably confusing, but I wanted to just give you a brief update on what's going on. On August the 11th, the Board of Elections voted to consolidate precincts from 14 to 12. This comes after months of planning and discussions. We take our numbers from the previous year's elections and we look at those and we see how we can better serve our voters. People are probably saying, well, if you're taking away 2 precincts, how's that serving our voters? It's one of those things where people are voting early. And we want to do our part in saving taxpayer dollars as far as, what's best for the county as well as looking at the voters. So what we did is we started looking at our precincts that were not as busy as the others, where you see more turnout early than you do on election day. People are not voting on election day anymore. Now, we do have those diehard voters that refuse to vote early. They have to go on election day. It makes them feel patriotic, and we support that. We just want you to vote. So I wanted to kind of go over those with you briefly in your little packet that I gave you. We will be closing Moorside Elementary School, and we will divide that precinct between Watson Government Complex and a new precinct that we're relocating, which is Burnt Hickory Park. We will close Sammy McClure Middle School, and those voters will be divided between Burnt Hickory Park and a new precinct will be opening, which is Shelton Elementary School. The voters in the Cedar Crest, Seven Hills, Bentwater area have been begging and begging and begging for a precinct, so we are putting one out there. And we're also looking at doing a new early voting location out there, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. We will be closing PB Rich Middle School, which is located over off of Macklin Road. And we are very, very fortunate that Westridge Church has agreed to allow us to be an early voting location as well as an election day precinct. So very excited about that. Mount Tabor Park has been a great facility for us. It's one of our busiest early voting locations as well as an election day precinct. However, we have outgrown Mount Tabor Park. Not parking, but facility-wise, we have outgrown that. We have a very small room there, and it has served us well, but we know that we've got to move on and go into a bigger location. Some of the other changes you'll see is the eastern boundary of Precinct 8, which is Ragsdale Elementary School, will move some of those voters closer into Dallas, because right now they're currently having to go all the way out to Highway 101 to Holly Springs Road to vote at Ragsdale Elementary School, and it's basically closer to get them to vote here. And then the northeastern corner, and I wish I would have brought the map to show you, but the northeastern corner of the precinct of Austin Middle School, which is far south Paulding, there's just this little square, and I don't know what I was thinking when I drew that line, but we're going to take that line and make it more consistent and add those voters into Nebo Elementary School. As far as down Buchanan Highway, and Todd, you're probably going to be the one who gets the most questions about this because we're affecting you and Tony more than we are anyone. But Buchanan Highway is a very difficult area to precinct because you have state lines down there as far as our state representatives. But the people that lived, if you're going down Buchanan Highway towards the Harrelson County line, those people that are on the right side of Buchanan Highway were having to drive all the way to Precinct 8, which is Ragsdale. I have redrawn that line, and those voters now will be going about 3 miles down the road to Scoggins Middle School. So hopefully all these line changes will be a positive thing for the voters, and they won't have to drive past a precinct to get to a precinct. A few more things I want to talk to you about. The charts that I gave you is just showing you basically the percentages all the way back to 2012 from primary elections to general elections to presidential primaries, and you see how the turnout is. I know that the turnout is always higher during the presidential election year because everybody's going to vote. But with the trend that we're seeing with the turnout of voters in the big elections, 2018 is going to be a big year as well. Not only locally, but I think it's going to be a huge election for our state election. I wanted to also add in to this is that these changes that we are doing is probably going to affect between 25,000 and 30,000 voters. We will notify every one of these voters. They get a precinct card because we'll be making these changes. So they will be aware of the changes. We're going to do everything we can to get the word out. Commissioner Collette, I want to come to your town hall meeting in January if that's possible, if you don't mind. And any of the others of you that have them, I would like to come to those, so just let me know. As far as the cost savings by what we're doing is the annual cost savings to the taxpayers in a primary election year would be $42,000. In a presidential preference primary year, it would be $65,000 as an annual cost savings. These savings do include runoffs. If we don't have runoffs in a primary year, it would be a $30,000 savings. And if we're in a presidential primary election year, it will be a $42,000 savings. We will be adding some early voting locations. The cost to have an early voting location is $5,000. That's for 1 week. What we are looking at, and I really don't want to talk about the early voting locations a lot because the board has not voted on this. They have only voted on the precinct changes. We will continue to offer 21-day voting here in the election office in the cafeteria because y'all have graciously agreed to let us do that. We will be moving the early voting location from Poplar Springs Baptist Church to the events place in Hiram. Poplar Springs has become a nightmare for us as far as Highway 92. We have traffic backed up all the way to the Douglas County line and all the way to Nebo Road, which is a danger. So at least at the events place, we will have plenty of parking and we have a red light. So I think that's going to help us. We will also be closing the Mount Tabor Park, as I had spoke of before, and moving that to Westridge. That will be early voting and election day voting. Last Wednesday, on August the 16th, the Paulding Northwest Atlanta Airport voted unanimously to allow us to use the terminal building for an early voting location. So we will be doing that just for an early voting location. And I have spoken with them and said that if that works out well for us and it's well received, we will possibly make that a voting election day precinct and possibly close Ragsdale Elementary School, but that would be for 2020. We have a verbal agreement for location in the Crossroads Cedar Crest area. We're waiting for the board to vote on that, their board, to give us the okay. I don't want to just go on a verbal agreement. I want to have something in writing that they will allow us to use their facility that will serve our Northeast Paulding area. We're actively pursuing a location on Highway 61 South, but I don't think that one's going to work out. So if y'all know of anything, especially Utah, that's your area, we need something near the 61 Ridge Road area down in there for early voting, only just for a week, because we want to be able to serve the people in every community, because, you know, they're going to get off work and they're going to say, hey, I need to vote. They can pull in and vote, and that's what we're trying to encourage. Like I said before, we will no longer use Burnt Hickory Park as an early voting location. The people from Cedar Crest, Seven Hills, and Bentwater did not want to drive to Burnt Hickory Park to vote. I cannot justify paying people to sit there and twiddle their thumbs. I will not do that. So that's going to better serve us as an election day precinct, and not do it for a whole week. We have a lot going on in our office right now. We're continuing to push through our audit on our voter registration cards. People are registering to vote like crazy. We're getting 200 to 300 new voter registration applications a day. And as of yesterday, we started the municipal election cycle. Qualifying started City of Dallas and City of Hiram, so we are officially in election mode. I want to say that it is a privilege to serve the Board of Commissioners, the taxpayers, the voters. I have a wonderful staff. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do, and we work very well together. But it is a privilege to get to stand here. I know that the past few months have been very trying. And I want to close with this, and I know that this is totally unrelated to what I'm up here about, but I want to share something. We turn on the news every day, and we see all the bad, and the fighting amongst ourselves. But President Trump did his speech, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and I want to share one part of it because it really touched me. It said, when one part of America hurts, we all hurt. And when one citizen suffers an injustice, we all suffer together. Loyalty to our nation demands loyalty to one another. Love for America requires love for all of the people. When we open our hearts to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate. The young men and women we send to fight our wars abroad deserve to return to a country that is not at war with itself at home. We cannot remain a force for peace in a world if we are not at peace with each other. to me, that was very profound. We always need to be at peace with one another, and I know that can be very difficult sometimes. But thank you all for what you do. We all appreciate you. Everything you do, I know it's a hard job, but you are appreciated and you are respected for what you do, and I thank you for letting me serve.
Thank you, Deidre, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
You really want to do that? I'd like to say one thing, Deidre. Some people may not remember, but back in the early 2000s, mid-2000, 2004 election, we actually had, and this is what early voting's done for us, which I think is great, but we actually had, if I'm not mistaken, 28 precincts.
We did.
And because I actually visited all 28 one day, try to do that.
Yeah, I have. It's difficult.
I can tell you that's tough. But we actually, that's how many we had. So for us to trim a couple more down, it just shows you what early voting has done and the opportunity that is provided for everybody to do that. Yeah, you have some hardcore people like myself that we got to get out there on that election day, and that's what you want to do, and that's great. But the opportunity that early voting is given to the citizens is wonderful. And so when somebody hears about trimming a couple precincts and moving things around, it's all good. And I know you guys have worked for months on what you brought us this morning. So I thank you for your work, for your department, and what they do.
Thank you. I wanted to present something to y'all that Tapson shut the budget down, but a few days after the budget was approved, I got this thing in the mail from one of the vendors that we deal with, and they have actually created a mobile voting bus. And it's perfect. We can just drive it. I think a commissioner could take a turn, and you all could go like to Kroger and to Publix, and we would have voting day there. But it's handicap accessible, 10, 12 voting machines. I'm all about that. So that's probably going to be my next year's Thank you all so much.
Lady who thinks out of the box.
Deidre, before you get away, I want y'all to know that on the personal side, from time to time, us commissioners are coming here and there'll be some scripture laid up here, a notification that I'm praying for you, and it comes from Deidre, and that means so much.
Oh, thank you. I am praying for y'all. Y'all got a hard road ahead of you, so.
Thank you very much for that.
My thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
We have no one who signed up for public participation on agenda items. Under consent agenda, we have 3 items. Number 1, action to authorize the chairman to sign all necessary documents with the Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Paulding County Board of Commissioners, property assigned with the Dallas Livable Centers Initiative. It's project PI 0010332. Item number 2, approve the term date for Robert Kraus with the Industrial Building Authority to end on December 31st, 2019. Due to clerical error, it was 2018. And item number 3, approve the acceptance of perpetual maintenance for the following streets: Harmony Grove Phase 3, Grove Meta Drive, Harmony Circle, and Park Court. Would any of the commissioners like to move these to the regular business? I would not like to move it into regular business, but would ask Mr. Green to, there wasn't much backup material on the Dallas Livable Initiatives project, so if you would expand on that for a minute.
It's been a little while since we brought another item to you on this project. This is the Johnson Street sidewalk project that Dallas is pursuing. They have a federal grant that is designed to improve pedestrian access to cities and centers, and they pursued a number of grants. This is probably 2 or 3 in their list, and it does involve some of the board property that bordered along Johnson Street, which we had already handled, and then in this case the former board property, which is now held by the Regents for Georgia Highlands, and they've entered into an agreement, or they went ahead and had some dedications from the Regents to Georgia DOT for their project, but the county still holds an interest in that property. Lonnie could, and if you have a question, Lonnie can probably better explain it, but there's a little interest there we have have to?
We kept a revisionary or reversionary interest in that property if it was no longer going to be used by Georgia Highlands. So anything that's, if the Georgia Highlands or the Regent system was trying to deed it out, it would have to come back to you. So we're quit claiming this area for the sidewalk project and other things Dallas is doing. So.
I don't know if any of you have driven down Johnson Street when school is coming in or out, but the students have to walk down the street practically. So I think it's going to be a good project for downtown.
Thank you very much. We will not move any of the consent agenda to regular business then. Under old business, item number 1, discuss action to appoint Dan Nolan to the Paulding County Industrial Building Authority with a term ending December 31st, 2019. This was tabled at the July 25th, 2017 Board of Commissioners meeting, and then again in our last meeting on August the 8th, 2017 at the Board of Commissioners meeting. As chairman, I would really like to see an up or down vote on this old business item. It was, again, 4 weeks ago when it was first before at one of the BOC meetings. It was a little longer than that when the resumes and the phone numbers were made available to the post commissioners to contact Mr. Nolan, and a couple have had good conversations. I read a part of the resume last week, or 2 weeks ago. It's a quality individual. In my conversations with him, he's a very direct, to the point businessman who gets things done and listens. And as the legislation from 1962 make the IBA a constitutional authority and give the chairman the responsibility to make a nomination, then I look for quality people and then ask you all to vet them. So I think it's time to flesh out this board. It's only a 6-member board, of which 3 of them are elected. And Nancy, you know what to say about elected officials. There's only 3 additional people. There's the chamber president, and then there's 2 nominated and confirmed positions. So we only have one of those filled, and have only had one of those filled for the better part of a year. I brought one other individual as a nomination back in February that was not confirmed. So again, I would very much like to end this today and have an up or down vote on Mr. Nolan. Is there any additional discussion?
I think all of us have reached out and talked to him. I'm not sure of that. When I talked to him, he let me know several commissioners had.
I've talked to him.
And I know Commissioner Collette has some. Okay, hearing no further discussion, new business item number 1. Well, we're skipping number 1. That's been taken off the agenda. And new business item number 2 is discuss action to enter into the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Hiram to use the Hiram water tank structure for advanced metering infrastructure. Ms. Ashmore.
As we've discussed, Paulding Water System is implementing a pilot project in the southeastern portion of the county for advanced metering infrastructure. Which will provide real-time information about a customer's water use. The pilot will involve about 1,600 meters initially, and it requires the placement of an antenna on the Hiram water tower in order to provide coverage for that area. I've worked with the city manager at Hiram to develop an understanding and an agreement, and with Ms. Skipper to make sure that we've got the appropriate indemnification language and coverage on that agreement. The benefit to us is being able to implement this pilot and hopefully then first phase of advanced metering infrastructure throughout our service area. The, and it would, but this tower will also be, or this antenna would also be available should the city of Hiram want to implement that advanced metering infrastructure for their system. Any questions?
And we do have a copy of the agreement.
You have a copy of the
Right.
agreement in your package.
Right. Any questions, concerns? Okay.
I don't think so.
Good deal.
New business item number 3, discuss action to authorize the chairman to enter into a local government lighting project agreement with Georgia Department of Transportation for the State Route 61 at the County Route 473 Davis Bridge Road. PI number 00139950, Paulding County. Mr. Green.
Great, I just want to tell you a little bit about the project. Over the years, we've had some high-speed, very severe crashes at Highway 61 and Davis Bridge Road. I'm aware of 1 or 2 fatalities myself, going back probably 10 or 15 years. And it has risen in importance in the Georgia DOT work program to the point that they're pursuing this project to correct a situation involving our road, but also certainly a crash problem on Highway 61. The current recommendation is a roundabout alignment further north of the existing intersection. This is in post 4. Spoke to Commissioner Crowe about the possibility of what they might do. We don't have a final design. This is early recommendations. In order to move forward with the project, Georgia DOT approaches the local government early on to make sure we're on board with supporting the lighting that would be needed. Typically, when you have a roundabout on a rural highway, they want to add lighting a few hundred feet back in each direction to bring attention to it, since it's kind of out in the middle of something via a high-speed road. But otherwise, it could be similar to a situation where we're paying for the power for a signalized intersection. It certainly would be more, I don't think, on a yearly basis. I recommend that we participate in the lighting assistance since we're in the business of street lights, and this is not something GDOT typically does or wants to do. It might possibly kill the project or delay the project if we don't agree. I like the concept they have come up with. It realigns Davis Bridge Road, takes out some of the curves and geometric problems that we're going to have to deal with someday when we improve Davis Bridge Road. So they were really taking care of a lot of issues for us and saving us probably millions of dollars when it's all said and done in pursuing this project for Paulding County and for the state route system. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great.
Thank you.
We're going to call him Scott Roundabout Green. For clarification, his agenda item there was new business item number 2, and then the City of Hiram water tank structure was number 1, and this is new business item number 3. Discuss action on the chairman's nomination of Jimmy Renfro to the position of building maintenance manager with a tentative start date of August 28, 2017. Mr. Acker is ill today. I noticed Ms. Palmer in the audience. So I didn't ask you, Terry, if you wanted to stand in for him, but glad to have you here.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, this evening at 7, I will formally make the nomination.
The way our enabling legislation reads is that the chairman will formally make the nomination this evening for the person, and then y'all will confirm it. And other than that, I don't know the details of the employment description, so that may be something that you have.
This is the Director of Government Buildings. This is Mike Laird's position that we're filling. Mike, semi-retired, has been helping us on a part-time basis until we can get his position filled. So I believe Mr. Renfro is the candidate that Mr. Carmichael was going to nominate for that position.
Well, I know, I talked to Mike, and he's ready to retire. So
He is ready to retire.
He's ready to see that position filled. I know that we've looked in the vetting process and vetting process of finding somebody, so we'll look that over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the reason we kind of all puzzled and hesitated for a minute was because when you were reading off the new business, we kind of, you corrected a minute ago, but that's why we kind of all looked at each other like, where are we at? Because you had mentioned a couple numbers that were different than our numbers, so.
Right.
Just in case anybody was asking, we're good. So now that we know what number goes where.
The new business item number 1 was canceled right pretty close to before the meeting. So that is the conclusion of our regular business. We do have a need for executive session for personnel and real estate. There are no citizens who have signed up for non-agenda items. So I would entertain a motion that we go into executive session for personnel and real estate.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Davis. Second.
Second.
There we go. Second by Commissioner Collette. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are excused for executive session. Okay, we have a quorum, so I will call the regular session back to order and announce that we did not cover any items or there was no action taken in the executive session. So is there a motion that we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.